There we go. Hello. Good morning. Just grabbing my sage. How's it going? Good morning. Just lighting my sage. My giant sage doobie. Matthew. Good morning, my love. Jessica. Hello, sweetie. Nice to see you. Woo. Set myself on fire. Don't mind me and my pyrotechnics this morning. My sage bundles got some energies in there I needs to get rid of. Hi, Paulius. Hi, Anna. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Sharice. Hi, Lori. Hi, Erica. Hi, Dana. Good morning, Helen. Hi, Rachel. Good morning, Willow. Hi, Jen. Hi, Janet. Hi, Izzy. Hi, Anna. Hi, Sophie. Hi, Katie. Nice to see you all. Good morning. How is everyone today? Did you guys have a good weekend? I had a very busy weekend. I will be buying myself a new chair because that's how sick of this chair I am after this weekend. I'm like, you know what? I need like a Rolls Royce of chairs if I'm going to be spending 12 hours a day in this chair. It has been very, very busy. Busy. I have doubled up on clearings. I literally just finished doing clearings with Carolyn minutes ago because you guys are killing me with bookings right now in a very blessed way. I'm so grateful and so blessed for all the bookings that are coming in. But at the same time, I'm a little bit panicked because I have 230 pending bookings right now. That's not how many clients are waiting. There's more. Some of you guys book family clearings. Sometimes it's property checks. And you know what's funny? Our team has been growing so quickly the last couple of weeks that we've been going above and beyond what we normally do. Like yesterday, somebody booked an earthbound check and we're like, all right, let's just go in and do an earthbound check. But they were somebody who passed away in a hospital, right? So we're like, all right, well, let's see if we can do any good in this hospital since we're already here helping one earthbound. We cleared an entire hospital to help one person yesterday. The guides were like, well, we have a big enough team, so why not? So they did. They cleared an entire hospital just because we went looking for one person. There were over like 700 earthbounds in that hospital, and they're like, yep, all of you can go now. They crossed them all over. They cleared out everything. And I was like, how come we could do that? Like, we weren't doing that before. And they said, well, we have a much bigger team than we did before. We have a massive team now. And I started chatting. I had a little reminisce with Zach because I watched a recording from over a year ago, one of my very first conversations with Zach, and I re-listened to it because it was about Evanon and the whole Orion Wars thing. So I wanted to go back and listen and see if there's anything new that I picked up from like a year later. And it's amazing the difference that a year makes. It's unbelievable because in the conversation, Zach was like, it's just me. Like, he was like, I got like a couple of Salacians with me. And he's like, we can only do so much because there's only a couple of us soul guides here. And now it's like we have a whole army behind us. And they're like, I mean, I'm just blown away at the difference 1 year can make. Can you imagine where we're going to be in a couple of years from now if our team is getting this big? In fact, the guide said at some point soon, we won't even have to go through the protocol. You'll just be able to like, boom, and they're clear. And like everything is gone. Multidimensionally, all the shit, you don't have to go through the whole protocol at some point in the future. And I was like, that'll be nice. I still remember what our friend Chen said 2 years ago, that at some point in the future, we'll be able to clear entire audiences of people, just clear the entire audience in one go. How exciting. So Janet says, is that where you got the info for yesterday's post? Yes. In fact, I don't want to talk about this too much. I have learned a lot over the last couple weeks in regards to galactic history. Adriana and Bradley and I have been going through the Akashic Records a little bit. We are writing a book on the Orion Wars. We are taking literally everything that we could possibly find from history and putting it into the book. So it was funny. Yesterday we sat down to work and we're like, all right, well, let's just start at the beginning. And when we said let's start at the beginning, I thought like, let's start at the beginning of the Orion Wars and what happened, you know, but actually we went to the beginning of time. I was like, okay, before planets were even like created. That's how far back in the records we went. I was like, okay, I don't know if that's what was the intention for us to go all the way far back. Because honestly, there's just so much history to go through. That's over 1 million years that the Orion Wars were happening. 1 million years. That's a lot of history. This is why I say every single one of you has some degree of Orion War trauma. Everybody got eaten by a lizard at least once, considering how bad it was. So it was honestly like, as I was writing all these notes and writing this down, and at the end of the session, I was like, you do I was like, do you realize how much this is like a hodgepodge? Like, seriously, if you were to take all of the Orion War history and put it into one book, I'm thinking that George Lucas might sue us because this is so straight up like just out of Star Wars. This is Star Wars history, but more accurate. So I'm like thinking, okay, this is Stargate, Star Trek, and Star Wars all wrapped up into one, with a bit of Alien in there, a bit of Predator in there, and a bit of what was that other one? Jupiter Ascending. That's in there. I mean, all of that history. If you were to take all of those movies, including The Matrix, and then put them all into one big box, they would all resonate. Some of that would have, I mean, it's literally, that's our history. So as we go back into the Akashic Records and I'm hearing all this, I'm like, I swear to God, I've heard this story before. And Zach was like, you remember all this. This is not new information for you. This is all you remembering. This is galactic history that should be kind of like fresh in your mind to that degree. And I was like, holy shit, all of this is real. Pretty much every sci-fi movie out there has some truth in it. And they're like, yeah, pretty much. I even found out how planets are made. I'm just curious, if you guys, how do you think they make a planet? Because planets are made, planets are created. So I'm just curious if anybody can get it right. Before I tell you guys how they actually do it, I'm just curious if any of you, they gave me a really great analogy last night to help me understand it. Because like I said, we went back to like primordial ooze type of time, like straight up. We went to back before planets were even created. And I was like, holy shit, this is cool. Sound. Angeliki says sound. So, and this is something that I'm not gonna put too much information out there because you guys are gonna have to wait for the book. But I also found out how lizards were created. I found out how all life was created yesterday. I was like, holy shit. Do you know that there's an ancient race that exists, or at least used to exist? I don't know if they did. We're talking like millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago. Even in another galaxy. This wasn't even started in our own universe, right? All of this happened in another universe first. They created life through frequency, through sound, through frequencies. Like they literally, like people think, well, maybe they're making animals and creating things through genetics. Genetics came later. They just created things out of sound, out of frequency. And they created all life. And I was like, all life? And they're like, yeah, all physical matter was created by these ancient beings. And I was like, holy shit. But yeah, sound and light, frequency. That's how they created reptilians too. They created all of them. They created pretty much everything. And they created planets. And the analogy they gave me, they said, think of the creation of a planet like the creation of a pearl. And I was like, oh. So for those of you who don't really understand, a pearl is created by basically taking like a grain of sand or a grain of something, you know, and using that as like the base. And then all of a sudden, all these things will collect around it and it will start to pull in, you know, like matter to a degree. So it's under pressure and through minerals and all kinds of things being pulled in. It reminds me so much of Titan AE. If you guys have seen the movie Titan AE, which is another really great movie that's got tons and tons of truth in it. Holy shit, Titan AE is like real. I mean, that is pretty much a documentary at this point. Titan is a really good movie if you haven't seen it before. So that's how planets are created. And they said the seed, that little like speck of dirt or dust or whatever it is that creates the pearl is also depends on where the seed came from. There's different seeds that create different planets. And just like some pearls look absolutely spectacular and they're beautiful and they're big and they've got different colors, it depends on the seed that you use to start that pearl, right? So some pearls end up really sparkly and big. Some end up really small, but still pretty. Others end up manky and gross to that degree, depending on how it's grown, what seed you use, that sort of thing, right? Planets are exactly the same way, they said, depending on what seed you use to grow that planet, so to speak. And it takes a long ass time, for the record. They said it takes like forever to grow a planet. So they gave us a little bit of this galactic history in regards to the reptilians, and I'm not going to spill the beans yet because it is too much to let you guys know on the podcast. It is just way too much. You guys are going to have to wait for the book when it comes to the reptilian history and what happened to that degree. But the reason the guides are so excited about it and why they're so like giving us nudges, they're like, come on, you got to write this. You got to write this. And I was like, okay. So the reason we're writing it is because the guides are literally nudging us to do so. And the reason why they're so excited about it is they said that you guys will be healing. You'll be remembering too. Just like how everything they told me felt so familiar. And I was like, okay, it was straight up like Jurassic Park. That'll be another one. That's all I'm going to tell you. The creation of the reptilians was almost identical to the first Jurassic Park. Just for the record. In fact, that's another movie that they're probably going to want to sue me for copyright infringement when I start writing this book. It's a space version of Jurassic Park. Okay, that's right. That's pretty much exactly what happened. In Jurassic Park, they were genetically engineered and then they ate their people. Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. Okay. So there's going to be a whole lot of interesting things that you guys are probably going to be reading from these books and being like, oh my God, I remember that. Or, oh my God, that sounds familiar. And some of you might even end up in the book. Yes, Valerian. Yes, the Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets. Yes, that's also one that has so much truth in it. You're not even going to believe it. In fact, the opening scene where they have all these ships coming down and then you see them like breaking through the atmosphere of the planet, that put me into shakes. I was shaking as I watched that. That put me into a past life resonance, like panic. I don't know that is another good one. If you haven't seen Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets, that is also phenomenal explaining other dimensions, other frequencies. So if you haven't seen Valerian and the 1,000 Planets, that's a really good one for helping you understand the difference between 3D and 5D. Like there's this one scene where they come to like this place in the desert where there's literally nothing. Like it's just empty desert, right? And you see people walking around in like VR and shit. And you're like, why are they just walking around in an empty desert? And then they switch frequency and then they see a whole city appear in front of them. And they're not walking around in a desert. They're walking around in a multi-dimensional city. That movie was so triggering for me as well, Sophie. I feel you on that. So that's why I say, like, you guys love these movies for a reason, because you can feel the truth in them. And that's why sometimes you're going to literally, like, you're going to feel it in your chest. So this is why I say when we start putting real truth, real history into these books, and we're trying very hard to, it was funny, we're trying to even get the names right of certain things. Like there was a specific type of reptilian that we were trying, we're like, what is it called? And then Adriana would be like, I literally just see a bunch of symbols. And I'm like, you mean the Akashic Records of another universe doesn't speak in English? Darn. Because I'm like, what should we call them? Because we don't have a name for this other type of reptilian. And they're like, you're going to have to come up with your own nicknames in English, because literally if we ask the name in the Akashic Records, we just see a bunch of alien symbols popping up. And we're like, okay, that's not going to work. That's not going to help. So we're going to need to come up with some nicknames for some of these beasties that we're finding. The TV series V was, I'm pretty sure that. So we went into a little bit about what happened when the reptilians came to Orion, because they're not originally from Orion. That was just their first place that they invaded, so to speak. And they made a lot of friends in Orion. And we found out about that. And again, I'm not going to give you too much detail on that. But it was very much like the movie V, and how they invaded Orion and how they made friends before they did. They were like, "You can trust us. You're different, but we're cool." And they did. They said pretty much exactly how they moved in on Orion. If you've seen the series V, then you already know the history of how they moved in on Orion. Because there were planets in Orion that was like, "Oh yeah, you guys seem cool. Come on in." And I'm sure you can understand how that went. If you've seen the TV series V, you understand how that went. Okay? So this is why I say this is history that you guys are going to feel very familiar with. So the Pilgrims moving to America sounds like kind of pretty much. They're very similar. The humans did not invent colonization. We'll put it that way. So, and I asked, I've been learning a lot. I wanted to know. I'm like, I'm asking all kinds of questions. Like, what were their invasions like? I just wanted to know. Was it slow? Was it like, did they creep in kind of like they did with V? Did they just straight up bombard everybody? You know what they showed me in my head? Independence Day. That's what their invasions were like. Their invasions were like Independence Day. If you've seen the movie Independence Day, yeah, it was like that. The whole shebang, mass landings, you name it, incinerating cities. I mean, they were talking about how like they couldn't even fight back in the Orion Wars at all. They couldn't fight back. Why? Because first of all, they didn't have weapons. Nobody needed defense before the reptilians showed up. Nobody needed protection. There was no violence in the galaxy. Everybody was getting along for the most part. And then second of all, they said, well, how do you fight a laser that comes out of the sky? It's not like ships were coming out of it. It literally just lasers coming down and incinerating, turning whole cities to glass. There's a lot of trauma that people are still remembering from all of this. So anyway, y'all are have to wait for the for the books to get any more out of me. So, but this is why I say, if you want to know more about the history, just watch those movies that I've been name dropping and you'll know. You'll understand. Especially when you read the books, you're going to be like, holy shit. Because we're putting as much truth in there. Like literally, it's going to be pretty much verbatim from the records. And the guide said it needs to be that way. People need to know what happened and they need to remember who they are. And this will help. People who will read it will understand. And I'm not selling it as science fiction. I'm not putting it up. They probably will try. They're going to tell me it was science fiction, but I'm straight up being direct with people. No, it's not science fiction. We're going into the records to get as much of an accurate depiction as possible. So that will be fun. Leanne says, those kind of movies make me feel sick all over. They completely destroyed entire planets. Leanne, they didn't just destroy entire planets. There are planets that have no life on them whatsoever. It's like, it's not just destroying a planet. They went full scorched earth, so to speak. Although it wasn't Earth, if you know what I mean. When the reptilians invaded a planet, there was nothing left. They would eat everything down to the last critter. How? How could they do that? You know how snakes can smell with their tongues? That was another interesting thing. I'm like, how did they find everybody? How did they literally kill everybody down to the last man, woman, child on these planets? Because they could smell them. They could smell with their tongues. All they had to do was open their mouth and they could smell everybody. They could trace you, could chase you down just by smell. I'm like, that's absolutely horrific. That's fucking terrifying. That's why I told you guys it's like the movie Predator. Straight up. I was like, holy shit. So I'm learning a lot. We'll put it that way from going into these records. Tess says, how do we get out of this nightmare? We got a good plan, so to speak. The guides are very optimistic about our future. So this is why I say, like, there's going to be a whole lot of very interesting things that are happening on this planet because we've been gaslighted for so long. All those things that are in the movies. That's what I said to the guides yesterday. I was like, I'm in the middle of a fucking sci-fi movie. And they're like, yeah, you are. I was like, this is straight up sci-fi. It's like, I sound fucking delusional talking about this stuff. And they're like, well, it's all true, though. That's why so many people love sci-fi. We shouldn't even be calling it sci-fi. It's just science. There's nothing fiction about it. Science nonfiction. So anyway, my whole point in all of this and why I'm discussing it is the fact that we really do need to learn our history, because there's so much. People think, like, for example, the Sumerian tablets are history. No, they're not. That's a Bible. The Sumerian tablets, especially with Zachariah Sitchin was a Jesuit from the Vatican. So they knew that people were going to start recognizing more science, that they're going to want more questions. They're going to want more answers than Sky Daddy answers. So they needed to control the organized science religion, so to speak. So they did that with Darwin and several others who they considered to be, you know, like people that supposedly found out the history of the human race. They didn't find out anything. They were led to that. And Sitchin was exactly the same way. I forget who said it, but they said if the Sumerian tablets were actually true, they would have been written on gold, not mud. Pretty sure it was Alex Collier that said that. They would have been written on gold rather than mud if they were actually true. Not clay tablets. That was literally just the Bible that they were passing around to the humans to try and explain to the humans how they got here. So there's going to be all kinds of exciting things about it. Can someone please tell me the name of the movie she mentioned about creating planets? It started with the T. Titan AE. If you haven't seen Titan AE, it's it's like an all-star cast from like 25 years ago. Titan AE. What about the Emerald tablets? You know they weren't written on emerald, they were written on moldavite. We know about the Emerald tablets. Yes, Emerald tablets were actually moldavite tablets. So, you guys want to hear the funny story about the streaker yesterday? I was going to tell you guys about that. So, we tuned in. I was doing clearings with Adriana and Zach. Adriana goes into trance, and I'm chit-chatting with Zach. And we go to do a clearing on somebody, and somebody booked a property check. So they were just wanting to clear out the house. And I'm going to probably message this client because I want to be like, did you know what was going on in your house? So Zach tunes in and Zach is like, what is this? That's the first thing he says as he tunes into the client. And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I don't know what I'm seeing right now. Hold on a moment. I was like, okay. And he goes, oh, okay. And I said, what is it? And he goes, well, I thought it was a succubus. I was like, what? You thought a succubus? He goes, it's not a succubus. It's an earthbound. And I said, how did you get an earthbound confused with a succubus? And he goes, well, he's very skinny and naked. And he's just running all over the house, like zoom, 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 zoom. And I started having flashbacks because I don't know if you guys remember, I've told a few people this before, but I was a firefighter. When I was 16, I joined the fire department and I went to do EMS. And I started having flashbacks to my very first case that I had. So when I'm 16-year-old me, just to set the setting, is sitting at the firehouse waiting for a call to come in. And they said, a call comes through and they said, 30-year-old unconscious person at this address. And we're like, okay. So we go to this address and and the first thing I see walking in as a 16-year-old who's in training, by the way, just to drive that point home, was the very first naked man I had ever seen. I walk in and there's a man laying on the ground in his living room, completely like spread eagle, completely knocked out, right? Completely head to toe naked. And there's a hole in the wall. And he was running around the house drunk and naked and ran into the wall and knocked himself unconscious. And that's the first thing I saw walking in. My very first EMS case was walking in and seeing that. So I started having flashbacks to this and I'm kind of like, is this what I'm seeing here? And he says, yeah, I'm putting that in your head. This is accurate. This guy literally, doesn't know he's deceased and he's just running naked all over the house. And I started thinking about that guy who knocked himself out. And I was thinking, holy shit, it's just like this guy, except he must have knocked himself out a lot harder. You know, like, holy shit. And that's exactly what happened. This guy was just running. Zoom, 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 zoom. So Zach's like, all right, enough of this nonsense. We're going to catch him. And I was like, all right, go for it. And they tried to catch him. All of a sudden, there's these Salesians that are chasing this naked man all over the house. And they're trying to catch him. And they failed. They couldn't catch him. And these got out a net. And they tried to use a net. And they're throwing this net over this running around naked man. And they missed. They couldn't get him. So they said, you know what? Fuck this. So... So he ends up, they called in the angelics and they're like, what is going on with this guy? So they were like, fuck this. The Salesians were like, we're not dealing with this anymore. So he said he was literally slippery. Like they went to grab him and they couldn't. He just kept slipping out of it. So the Salesians were really frustrated and they're like, all right, that's it. Fuck this. We're calling in the angelics. So the angelics come in. He started fighting the angelics. He was like, no, get off me. Like fighting the angelics. And I'm like, what is going on with this man? And Zach goes, I think he died under the influence of a lot of drugs. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Did he take PCP and then like strip off his clothes and then run out in the street or something? I don't understand. And they were like, we have no idea. He's just, zoom, 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 running all over the place. And I'm like, holy shit. Jessica says Earthbound's gone wild. Seriously. And I'm like, how often do things like this happen? And the guys were like, almost never. Like, this is a very abnormal situation. And I could see it in my mind's eye, like this naked man. He had a lot of hair. He was hairy as well. And I could see it. That's why. And then just seeing him like trying to punch the angels as the angels are they're like, come with us, it's okay. And he's like, rah, like trying to fight the angels. Anybody seen that video from like 10, 15 years ago of the guy on the side of the road in New York City? The cops are trying to grab him and he's naked. Do you guys ever see that scene? It's an old video of this naked drunk guy or something. I don't know what that guy was on the side of the road. And I think it was New York City. And all these cops are trying to grab him and they couldn't grab him because there was no clothes to grab. And he must have been like slippery or something. It was like that scene all over again. So they did manage to catch him. And I asked Zach, I was like, if you die naked, what happens? Is this what happens when you die naked? I'm just curious. And Zach's like, it depends. Like for the record, I think the reason he was still running around streaking and didn't even get dressed is because he died under the influence. However you die, right? If you die drunk, if you die under the influence of drugs, if you die in a state of sleep, even, you can create this confusion for yourself as to whether or not you're actually dead. There's a lot of people who get up, let me start over. They died in their sleep, get up in the morning, not realizing they're dead. So what do? They go get dressed. They go have their breakfast. They get ready for work. They get in their car. They drive to work. They go on with their day. And they have no idea. They're even going to the gym and working on leg day. They have no idea that they're dead. Because keep in mind that when you switch your perception from your physical body, so when right now, I'm in my physical body, but if I were to die, especially dying in my sleep, my perception switches automatically from my physical body to my astral body. And if you're locked into the astral body, if that is your full perception, everything seems physical. Everything in the astral, for those of you who have astral projected, you know this already. Things in the astral become physical. So if you die and your perception is in the astral, everything seems physical. Janet says they don't realize no one can see them. They can be seen by other earthbounds. So other earthbounds that don't know they're dead will talk to them. They'll have conversations. It's just like Emmy. Emmy just says, like the movie Bruce Willis. Yes, The Sixth Sense. That is accurate. So this is why, and Sean just said in the comments, death is an illusion. It is. It is, Sean. 100% you are right. Because you don't technically die. You just switch your consciousness from one body to another. So now you're in your astral vehicle, so to speak, rather than your physical 3D vehicle. So you don't technically die at all. You actually just switch your perception. And then you're locked out of the 3D game, so to speak. It's like being in a video game, right? Well, you had to come into the 3D physical, into physical vessel, because that's the frequency it's locked into. But when you die, your frequency shifts and you go into other frequencies. So I have a question about this. I'm like asking the guides. I'm like, okay, so for example, lizards, when they come in and attack people, are they popping in physically or are they using astral projection? And if they're popping in physically, how does somebody like Fergus, for example, who's a discarnate, how are they able to grab them and manhandle them physically if they're technically in a different frequency? And they said, well, actually, a lot of the lizards that are attacking people are using soul projection. They're using astral projection to attack people, not attacking people physically. The ones that attack people physically are the really, really bad ones. We've heard cases. I had a client a couple days ago who messaged me and said that somebody threw him across the room. Somebody literally grabbed him like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. Somebody literally grabbed his foot and yanked him, yeeted him out of his own bed by his foot. I'm like, that's not an astral projection. And they said, no, that was one that popped in physically. They can do that. They can pop in physically. And if they do, they have technology that allows them to mess with the 3D physical. And I'm like, okay. I said, how many of them have that power? And they said, most of them don't. In fact, the tech that they have, that's more like a level 4 Lizzie. And I was like, okay. So most of the time when they're harassing people, there's a fucking lizard underground that's meditating somewhere. And he's using soul projection while meditating to harass humans. And the guides are like, yeah. And I was like, okay, that makes more sense. So it's like a soul projection being grabbed by another soul projection. And they're like, yes. And I was like, okay, that makes more sense now. So what happens to the physical body when you grab the consciousness and send it to source? And they said it just dies. And I was like, okay, good to know. Okay. So every time we do clearings, there's a meditating lizard that just keels over. Good to know. Good to know. That's what happens. So just reading through the comments here. There's 175 people watching today. Good to see you all. Yes, that is me stirring my coffee. It's my OCD today. My OCD is acting up. It's me stirring my coffee. I didn't know you guys could hear that well. Because it switched my mic again. There we go. Let's see if that's any better. See if that helps. I don't know why my mic was supposed to switch over and it didn't. You guys, I didn't know you could hear that. Jessica says, how far down in the earth is the lizard? It depends. Keep in mind that the artificial 3D matrix is being broadcasted from frequencies, right? So it's like a filter being superimposed over another filter, right? So you have the natural, the source-based matrix, right? So the source-based matrix, here, let me turn it down. Is that better? Okay, sorry. So the source-based matrix, right? This is the 5D matrix. That is made by source. That is source that is setting that intention, right? So you also have the 3D matrix that is superimposed. So you have the natural base, and then you have the superimposed 3D matrix that is sitting over that. So the frequencies that are coming from the moon, I know how I sound saying this. Every time I sound nuts whenever I say this. But there is special technology that is hidden in Creedy Lig, which is the name of the ship up there. And that information is being bombarded here on Earth. So you guys are going to start noticing that there's going to be glitches in the matrix because all of that tech up there is starting to basically fall apart. All of that tech is on its last legs, so to speak. Another reason why people are like, we're talking about the 5D shift. So the guides were explaining, like, a lot of people want to know, well, if that's the case, right? If it's an artificial 3D matrix and the whole system is shutting down anyway, why don't you just go up there and turn it off? Why don't you just shut it all off, right? Well, do you guys ever see the movie They Live? You guys remember at the end of the movie They Live, when all of a sudden that frequency is no longer being broadcasted, and all of a sudden people, it's like the glasses, you don't need the glasses anymore, right? So in the movie They Live, they had special glasses that allowed them to see the true nature of life. And what happened at the end of the movie? Everybody was just standing around looking at aliens that were walking around. I mean, they were literally just like, holy shit, we were invaded a long time ago. There's fucking aliens everywhere. And we didn't even know they were here because they were walking around as humans. That's exactly what it would happen. If they went and turned it off, and then what would happen overnight? People would be losing their shit. You'd be able to see succubi coming through your phone when you're watching porn. Had to clear somebody's succubus last night because he was watching porn. You'd be able to see the succubus coming through your phone. You'd be able to see the lizard that's walking around behind your boss. Your boss is walking into work and you're going to see a big shadow lizard walking behind him. How many rednecks are going to be riding around in the back of a truck with shotguns filled with like straight up like rock salt? They're going to be going like supernatural, going out lizard hunting. That's exactly, it would be Orion Wars 2.0. If we could see what was around us, that is what would happen. People would be losing their shit and they'd go out hunting lizards. And the lizards would be like, oh, look at that. I can eat you now. They've just been taking energy from us. They haven't been able to eat us physically in 12,600 years or so, unless they use that tech and they grab us and bring us down underground. There's a lot of people that get snatched that way. They do occasionally still eat humans. Humans that go wandering around in national parks and you disappear in the wrong place. There are some areas where they can still snatch humans physically. But for the most part, they've been sustaining themselves just through loosh, just through absorbing fear energy through people. It is a form of sustenance. It's food. So they do have different forms of sustenance in regards to humans. And it makes me laugh. For those of you, if you remember many, many months ago, we were talking about what they eat down there. If they're up here soul projecting and just absorbing energy, then they need some kind of physical food, right? Do you know what they do? For those who don't remember, they grow their own meat. They create their own meat. It's not good meat to them. They don't like it. It's like that artificial meat. So imagine if you grew up on steak and now all of a sudden they're like, I'm sorry, you can't have steak. You can only have, what is it? That Beyond Meat, the Franken meat. That's what they're eating down there. They're eating Franken meat. They're eating Beyond Meat. They're using the fake stuff because they can't get the real stuff. They would prefer the real stuff, but in order to sustain their numbers, and when I say sustain their numbers, remember I was mentioning the movie Alien earlier with the big sea of eggs? I had some flashbacks of that too when I was learning about their history last night and how they were so easily able to come up with large numbers and be able to invade planets. That was straight up out of Alien. Do you guys have seen the movie Alien where they went into this area and there's fucking eggs everywhere? The flashbacks I was having in my head last night. Yikes. So let them enjoy their impossible whoppers while we still can. They're not happy about it. Trust me when I say they are excited to a degree. If they were able to eat us, they would prefer that. But so this is why I say, like, people, the more I understand the Orion Wars, the more I understand the importance of keeping them in quarantine. I understand now. I didn't understand the quarantine. I actually, being stuck in here with them kind of pisses me off. So I'm like, how dare you stick us in quarantine with them? And now after finding out what they did to the rest of the galaxy, how bad it was, I understand now. I get it. I get why they're happy about them being stuck here on Earth, even if it means they're torturing us. At least the Galactics are like, well, at least they're not going around destroying planets anymore, destroying entire civilizations like that. So they locked us in with their own creation because we humans are a reptilian creation to a degree. All that knowledge they stole from the geneticists that created them, they used that against us. So we are kind of like the long lost cousins of their captured slaves that they grabbed from everywhere. So technically humans don't exist very far away from this area. We're not Lyrans. We're humans. We were created through genetic modification. So they're like, okay, well, you stay in there, you GMOs. We're the GMOs. They don't want to get off the planet just yet. So there's a lot of people that try and understand why we're stuck here with them. Well, that's why, because they were ruining everything for everyone. Now they're just ruining things for us. So this is why, I know how crazy I sound talking about these things. I'm well aware. I just don't give a shit anymore because I know how true it is. I know for a fact it's true. So what am I going to do? Deny the truth just because it doesn't sound right? And in fact, I feel that once you have understood the truth, once you start to get an understanding of true history, you actually have a duty to talk about it. So that's why I'm talking about it. Does anyone here know they have hybrids? Yeah, of course there's hybrids. They hybridized everything they could. They get their hands on anything, they try and hybridize it. And for the record, I'm finding out a lot of other stuff. There weren't just the reptilians that were a problem during the Orion Wars. They had allies. I'm not going to go into those allies today, but the reptilians had a lot of allies. There were people that betrayed their own people and sided with the reptilians because they wanted power, because they wanted control. So that happened here on Earth too. There are humans that sided with the reptilians too for that reason, because they wanted power and control. There's other galactics that sided with the reptilians during the Orion Wars because of that. So I tried to find out their names, and all I got was a bunch of symbols too. So I'm going to have to come up with some names for these things. So they're just giving me symbols when I want to know the names of these different races and stuff. Do you know who they remind me of, though? In D&D, they're like dark elves. We'll talk about them more another time. There's going to be a lot in the books about those dark elves, the ones that sided with them. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. Angeliki said, is there any truth to the RH negative people? Yes. In fact, I've noticed, right, and I've studied the RH negative stuff quite a lot, and I was wondering how, for example, like I have RH negative blood, but most of my family does not. So I'm like, where did I come from? Like, how did I end up with RH negative blood, but the rest of my family didn't? The only other person in my family that had it was like a grandfather. So they basically explained, like, it's a DNA trait that gets activated when you're a starseed. So it's like dormant, but then when a starseed comes in and takes the body, it gets active. So people who are, your body can choose what blood type you're going to be based on what your parents had. So if, let's say, if one parent was A negative and one parent was O positive, your body coming in, you can choose what you want your blood to be. And if you're a starseed, you will activate it to be A negative rather than O positive. But not everybody who is O positive. For example, that's not to say that like you can't be a starseed if you're not O positive. Of course you can be. It's just what you chose. So if you look on my website on astrolara.com and then you look on my blog, there is an article all about RH negative blood types. I spent quite a long time studying them because I was very, very curious about them. And so I learned a lot. So just reading through the comments here, catching up on stuff. Thank you, Charisse. There's the blog. No, I meant O positive. I was talking about the difference between O positive and A negative, for example. So you can have one parent that has O positive blood, and then you have another parent that has O negative blood, and you'll end up with A positive or A negative. It's weird. Blood types just kind of do whatever they want to do. And I asked why that happens, and the guide said it's a genetic trait that they can choose. You can choose all kinds of genetic traits for yourself. You can choose all kinds of things for yourself. Not just for your genetics, but your personality and all. I mean, you have a huge pool of resources when you're trying to create yourself in your next lifetime. Can you be a positive and be a starseed? Yes, absolutely. You can have positive blood and still be a starseed. You might have a bit more difficulty in regards to activating some of your gifts. Some people believe that, and this isn't mentioned in the article, that when you have a specific, all right, so for those who don't understand what I'm even talking about, think of, all right, how far back do I want to start this? So everybody has a specific type of blood. And certain blood types have certain protein layers that exist around the skin of the blood cell. So think of an O positive blood cell, for example, like a grape, right? You have a blood cell that's like a grape. And if you were to have positive blood, that means that there is a protein layer that sits on the outer layer of that blood cell. So think of it like a grape that's got a very thick skin around the outside layer of the grape, right? That's what your blood cells are like. There's a protein layer that exists on top of that positive, the RH positive blood type. So when you take somebody who has a, let's say, a negative blood type, and you check their blood, you notice they don't have that protein layer. So it's kind of like having a skinless grape, right? That's a very big difference in regards to blood. This is why if you were to give somebody, let's say they have O positive blood, and you give it to somebody else, you could actually kill them if they don't have the same blood type, because that blood does not mesh with the blood type that they have, right? So what happens is you end up creating all kinds of issues in regards to procreation in this regard. It's like breeding a lion and a tiger together, right? You can make a liger, right? If you breed a lion and a tiger together, because they're so genetically similar. But they're different enough to where when you have a liger, you can't breed two ligers together. It creates this issue where it's like an incompatibility genetically. So two ligers, they're going to be sterile. All ligers are born sterile. Same thing happens with a mule. You can't mate two mules together to make a mule, another mule, right? You have to mate a horse and a donkey together because that's the only way to make a mule. If you were to breed a mule to a mule, they're genetically sterile, right? So there is a similarity that allows them to procreate, but it creates issues. And you have this with humans too. If you have, let's say, for example, Aiden's dad is I think he's O positive. I'm A negative, right? So Aiden was born, I don't even know what blood type Aiden is actually off the top of my head. I have to look that up, I think. I think he's O positive as well. Aiden has a polar opposite blood type to me. And I asked my guides why I had such a difficult pregnancy, and they said that was part of it. They said part of it was because he was so high frequency. My vibration was here, his was up here. So I had nausea literally for like 40 weeks. I had so much nausea, it was unbelievable. And so they said that was because of the vibration, but also because he had a different blood type. And they say that when you have a blood type of a child that's different from the mother, it can actually cause you to abort the baby unknowingly because your body responds to it like it's got a foreign thing, like it's got an illness. So that's why they've invented this Rogam shot. There's a shot that you can take that will help you to not miscarry if you've got a child with a different blood type. They didn't know this. So if there's a long time that people just kept having miscarriages over and over and over and over and didn't understand that it's because there's a mismatch in regards to the blood, right? As I was saying, us being like genetically modified, this is how it happened. We were GMO'd. That's why these things, we're not even supposed to have arches in our feet. Okay, they fucked us up. They did. When they were trying to genetically alter humans, they created a whole lot of problems. This is why so many of us have health issues. This is why we have a whole lot of problems with gene mutations, why so many people have issues with all kinds of physical health problems, because we were created in a laboratory. It's like a hodgepodge. Okay, we're like the platypuses of the human existence. To a degree, we are. Okay, like people look at platypuses and they're like, there's some weird shit going on with you. Yeah, same here. We're like the platypuses of the Lyran community. Because they're like, there's all kinds of things that went wrong with you. Well, that's why it helps. Seriously, there's so much understanding about genetics and galactic history. And when you start to understand that we are a mix of different races from all over the place, you start to understand. You understand why we are the way we are. And some people ask, like literally like 2 days ago, somebody asked for a psychic surgery because they thought that they chose all of these health problems in their life. And so we look into it, and I said to the guides, did she choose all of this? Was this part of her life plan? And they said, nope, was not her plan. And I said, so why is her body falling apart like this? And they said, bodies are designed to do that. You are literally designed to fall apart after age 50. We are literally designed. We are planned obsolescence. Okay? It's bad enough they did a shitty job of designing this vessel, but then they also literally designed it to fall apart. Planned obsolescence was literally designed as part of our genetics. The body is designed to start falling apart, just like our modern shit is designed to start falling apart after you've used it for a couple of years. Same thing. It gets frustrating when you start to understand that. And it doesn't help when there's poison everywhere and you got grays experimenting on you and all kinds of other things. So this is why the guides are telling you, if you're around the age 40, 50, 60, you should be putting so much more effort into your health. So many of us are lured into false sense of security and safety in regards to health. I mean, I do the same thing. I still think of myself, I'm in my 20s, if you ask me. Like, I don't feel like I'm 40 at all. And I don't look 40. So I don't tell myself I'm 40. I feel like I'm 28 most of the time. So I do things like a 28-year-old. And my guides have actually given me shit about that now. They're like, you realize you're going to have to put in tons more effort for your health. You're going to have to exercise a lot more. I was like, the other day, I was like, why do I feel this way? They're like, because you've been in a chair for 13 hours without moving. And I was like, oh, that explains it. They're like, you have to. My guides are like, get outside right now. They're really giving me shit. They're like, you have to be more healthy. You have to think more healthy. You have to go out in nature more. You need to do this more, because if you're not, you're gonna regret it. If you don't start taking better care of yourself, especially around the age 40, you're gonna have big regrets in the next 10 to 20 years, because you're gonna be trying to catch up with your health, and it's not gonna be easy. So it's like, I know, I hear you. So this is why the day after Christmas, I'm going on another fast. I'm going to do another cleanse for 10 days. I'm not going to eat anything. I'm just going to do the full, what do they call it? The master cleanse again. That was the best. If you guys remember, those of you who've been following me for more than a year will remember I talked about the fast I did last year, where I went 13 days doing a master cleanse. I have never felt better than I did after doing that. I'm just saying. That is the best I have ever felt in my entire life. And I just turned 40 when I was like, holy shit. So I'm doing it again. I'm going to do it every year around this time of year, because it was amazing. I felt like a new person. So if you Google master cleanse, this is, yes, the lemonade cleanse. I'm going to be doing that the day after Christmas. Boxing Day is my day for a start. And the plan is that I'm going to have 10 days after that to wean myself back onto food before I go to South Africa, because maybe I should be doing this after South Africa, considering how many parasites I got from biltong last time. So maybe I should be doing the cleanse after. I don't know. But no, I just feel like it's the right time to do it. So maybe if some of you are interested, you can do it with me. Please explain the master cleanse. So if you go on Amazon, you'll be able to find the book, The Master Cleanse. There's a whole lot of information, and I really think it's important to get the book to be able to understand it. The book is so small. Master Cleanse. It's also known as the lemonade diet. So if you go on Amazon or online, you're going to find the book. There's the book. Let me grab the link for you guys if you're interested. Copy. This is what it looks like. That's the Master Cleanse book. I'm going to drop it in the chat. So for those of you who are feeling brave and you want to do it with me, get the book and you'll see. It's a very small book. There's only like 50 pages. Like, it's not, 200 pages. It's not a lot to read. So for those who don't really understand what it is they basically, you don't eat food for 10 days. What you do, some people even do it up to 40 days for the record, but I feel like 10 days to 2 weeks is like this sweet spot. So what you do when you take the cleanse is you cut out eating food. You make a lemonade. It's a mix of fresh lemons, maple syrup. I know. Maple syrup and cayenne pepper. I am not a fan of drinking spicy lemonade, so I would do shooters of the cayenne pepper. You need to drink the cayenne pepper as well, because it helps to cleanse out your liver. It helps to clear out all of your stuff. And for the record, you're still going to be going to the toilet for about 7 days, because your body is still releasing stuff. You've got stuff in your guts that have been there for months that you haven't gotten rid of. So the shooters are literally, it's just cayenne pepper, lemon juice, and water. So I had to do the shooters because I'm not putting cayenne pepper in my lemonade and drinking all lemonade all day long. But what you basically do is you make a big big jug like this size of lemonade and you drink it all day. All day. You have to literally drink it the whole day. You're just drinking. And it's just lemons and maple syrup. And people are going to be like, how does that cleanse you? It's a long story. You have to read the book. And I'm telling you now, I don't like giving out health advice. So that's why I say this is just how I'm telling you what I do for myself. Okay. It's up to you if you want to listen and do it yourself too. But when I tell you I've never felt better in my entire life, I am not kidding. It was hard. In fact, I missed chewing. Like chewing food was the one thing. I was ready to chew on anything after 2 weeks of not chewing food. I'm ready to chew on a stick. I would like chew on my wooden spoon just to be able to be like, because you miss it. You miss food. It's hard. But when I tell you, my body has never felt better. It felt like a new me. Until I ate a pickle. Until I broke my fast. I did something really stupid. It was time for me to break my fast. And they're like, you can have some pickle juice and other things when you're breaking your fast. You can have like broths and stuff. And I made the mistake of the pickle juice was so good. I couldn't help myself. I drank a pickle juice and I was like, fuck it. I'll just eat one pickle. I felt every inch of that pickle moving throughout my body like I had swallowed a sea urchin. That's what it felt like. I asked why, and the guys were like, well, first of all, that was really stupid because they were like, you can't even process solid food. And the first thing you eat is one of the hardest things, like the skin of the pickle. My body was like fighting me the whole way. So I'm telling you, you'd be reminded. Don't eat anything when you listen to your intuition. Because I did not, and I went through 2 days of agony from eating one pickle. It was a small little pickle chip too. Like, I'm not even kidding. I will not be doing that again. Yes, I will be having 2-3 days of broth and liquids only. Like they talk about, you wean yourself back on with like orange juice and broth and like, that sort of thing. And then eventually you start to eat more like you eat light vegetables and light things. You know what I mean? Like you have to wean yourself back onto food. And the reason for that is your entire digestive system shuts down and reboots. Your whole digestive system. It's like I said, it's why I do it for at least 10 days. That's about how long it takes. About a week. The first 3 days are the hardest. On day 3, I thought I almost gave up on day 3. If it wasn't for me calling in my higher self, asking my higher self for help and getting help, they actually brought in an ancestor for me. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah, we're going to bring in an ancestor. He's going to be with you the whole time that you're doing the cleanse, and he will help you with the hunger pangs and the motivation and all of that. And I was like, awesome. Yes, exactly. It also starves all the parasites in your gut too. So it does a full parasite cleanse. So I'm not saying this is safe for everybody. So listen to your intuition. The only reason I even did this is because my soul guides last year, my higher self told me to do it. I was in trance. I was out in trance. I had a medium in trance and I'm chatting with the medium and I was talking with my friend Constantine, who's Arcturian. And Constantine was the one that said, your higher self wants you to do a fast. And I was like, really? And I said, yeah, your higher self is telling you need to do this. And I was like, okay. And I said, how many days? And it was my higher self that told me I had to do it for 13 days. And I was like, holy shit, 13 days of no food? And they're like, you can do it. And I was like, that sounds insane. And then I found out there's a bunch of Christians that do it. And I said, well, if they can do it, they do it a lot in churches, apparently. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was such a popular thing in churches. So churches do a lot of this group fasting where they follow this cleanse and they do it as a group and they support each other as a group. And when I read up on that, I was like, all right, if they can do it in church, then I can do it too. So that helped. And when I tell you it was worth it, yes. Somebody said, is 7 days enough? You'll see, I guess. I don't know. See how far, listen to your body, see if there's a way that you can try it out and listen to your body. See how you feel after 3 days. See how you feel after 7. See how you feel after 10. It's up to you what you do with your body. And I'm just telling you, I think it does take 7 days of non-eating any food whatsoever for your digestive system to reboot itself. So I'm pretty sure That's why they're insisting, because I know I can literally, it's almost like my higher self doesn't need an Arcturian this now to tell me that it's time again. So I do it once a year. And it was last year around this time that they told me to do it. So that's why I'm like, all right, it's been a year. I'll do it again. I can intuitively feel it's the right time to do it. Heather says, are all the parasites really gone? You know, the best part about this, Heather, is that I had so many sugar cravings. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a Taurus and we love food. We love sweets. I'm with Bradley on this. I am a big fan of like cookies and naughty shit that I should not be eating. So all of my cravings for sugar were gone. Literally disappeared overnight. I wouldn't say overnight, over 10 days. But no, literally all of my cravings. In fact, it was weird because you go 10 days without sweet stuff, right? The things that I liked beforehand, like I would make tea, for example, right? And I would need to add some stevia to my tea to make it like, make it taste more like tea. After going 10 days, I didn't need to add any sweetener whatsoever. I'd literally just fruit. I would just crush up some fruit in my tea, and that was sweet enough. So my sensitivity to sugar, it got so much more sensitive. Like it was crazy. The things that I thought weren't sweet enough ended up being too sweet. So isn't that weird? Like your body gets used to sugar and gets used to things being sweet. And then after I gave it up, I didn't need sugar. I didn't need anything. I need a little bit in my coffee because coffee is a whole nother story, but still. Salt too. Yes. Same here, Victoria. Less salt needed. So I'm starting on Boxing Day. I'm starting the day after Christmas. So you have time. I have to start the day after Christmas because I have to make a big meal for everybody on Christmas, and I'm not going to sit there and watch them eat it and not eat it myself. So my big Christmas meal is going to be the last meal that I have for at least 10 days. That is the plan. And if I tell you guys about it, now I have to stick to it. I can't change my plan. So this is me telling you guys that I'm going to do this is helping me to motivate myself to do it because it's not fun. It is not fun to sit there and drink lemonade. I used to drink lemon water every day. I stopped after drinking lemonade for 2 weeks. I don't drink lemon water anymore. I quit. It put me so off of lemons for 2 weeks. I haven't hardly drank lemons for a year because I was so sick of lemon. So just be aware, like if you have a real love of lemon, you might tarnish it for 2 weeks of just drinking lemonade. Yep. Lori says you'll squeeze a lot of lemons and go through a lot of maple syrup. You need the pure, real Canadian organic maple syrup. Yes. And yes, what Lori says, I'd have to do the research on how to do the master cleanse safely as a diabetic. Yes, that's a whole nother story. There's a lot of people that do this though. So there's a lot of research. So if you guys look into the master cleanse, you'll find all this info. This question, Katie says, does fasting help clear your pineal gland? Yes. In fact, my mediumship. So for the record, food lowers your vibration. It does. It doesn't mean to. That's just what happens, unfortunately. So if you're if you're fasting for 10 days, think of how much your vibration goes up. And you're cleaning out a whole lot of shit that's blocking you too. So this is not just for my own physical health. I'm doing this for my mediumship as well, because I know for a fact. Keep in mind, remember I told you guys this the other day, when I was an oracle, I was a Greek oracle in one of my past lives. I was an oracle of Delphi. And a lot of people think that the oracles of Delphi had such a wonderful existence, but we weren't. We were slaves. And the oracles were only allowed to eat once a week. We were fed one meal a week on Sundays. And we got 1 day off a year. 1 day off the entire year, right? But we were only able to eat once a week. Do you know why they allowed us to eat once a week? Because it made our visions stronger. Because our visions were stronger and more accurate if we did not eat. So isn't that crazy that they knew this even thousands of years ago, that food messes with your frequency and messes with your ability to see and perceive. So Tori says, but I love to eat. I'm a Taurus. I feel you on that. Food is part of the perk of being here. This is part of the reason why I can actually tolerate this planet. It's because we have the best food in the galaxy, so to speak. But then again, it depends on who you're asking. I don't think the chickens agree about us having the best food in the galaxy. What about New Year's Eve dinner and snacks if you start after Christmas Day? I had that thought, I'm going to South Africa. That's the reason why I didn't think about doing it until after New Year's. You guys can start whenever you want. Oh, you're right. It's 11/11. So if you want to wait till after New Year's, by all means. I don't drink or really do anything on New Year's. So I have nothing I'm going to be missing out on for New Year's. But if you guys want to wait and do it after New Year's, by all means, just do it when you can. Jessica said, did they gather girls or were they specifically chosen for the oracles? It depends. Most of them were literally just bought as slaves and they were trained to be oracles. You guys can't really see it very well from that image, but she's sitting over a crack. Here, let me see if I can show you. They fed them drugs too. It wasn't just about being an oracle and being trained as an oracle. You were fed drugs. The Pythia, John Collier. So here's the image. Here it is bigger, so I could show you what it actually looks like. So this is the painting I have on my wall behind me. Trying to get so it doesn't blow. You see how she's got the pool? She's got a bowl of water in her hand. She's holding, what are they called? Oh my God, bay leaves. Those are bay laurel leaves she's holding. There's more bay laurels on the floor by her. Those are bay leaves. You see the crack in the earth? You see how there's smoke coming out of it. She high. She's stoned as hell. So I asked the guides and I was curious. I was like, I wanted to know about my own history. So I was like, I asked them, I said, what is that? Like, what is the smoke that they talked about? You know what they did? They took a whole bunch of plants and herbs and drugs and all kinds of shit. They would burn it. They would literally take it and they would put it in the crack under that she would sit under. And people didn't know this. They thought it was just some natural smoke coming out of the earth. But no, they were burning shit. They would put all kinds of funky shit in there and they would light it on fire and it would be smoking as people would come in and she'd be sitting over that, breathing it in. So it wasn't a fish report. No, this was literally just a crack in the ground that they shoved a whole bunch of burning shit into and she smoked it. She sat over it, breathing it in. And it's the smoke that was creating the visions. However, smoke and starvation, I'm sure she was seeing all kinds of shit. So most of those oracles did not live past 30, for the record. They died young. And the reason for that is because they were breathing in all of that noxious shit in there while being starved and all kinds of other stuff. In fact, there's a horrible story about Alexander the Great and how Alexander stopped at Delphi because he wanted to chat with her, and he happened to he landed on Delphi on the only day of the entire year. Remember I told you they only get one day off a year? And there's a story about how Alexander the Great went into the sacred area which was her space, grabbed her by her hair and dragged her back to her spot in the temple so he could get his reading. I don't know what it is, but when I heard that story, before I was even an oracle, I had this feeling of rage. Like I was like, oh, I got so mad hearing that story. And it wasn't until I went into my past life resonance and found out I was an oracle and found out how awful they treated us that it made sense. That triggered me so hard. Can you imagine? So she was a slave, and all of these oracles were slaves, every single one of them. And they were drugged up slaves. So people put such a pedestal. She's literally sitting on a pedestal, though, to be fair. Like they put them on a pedestal, but it was literally just to make money. And I was so disgusted by it. I got so angry. I fought against it, and then they poisoned me. Those meals they would bring us that once a week, my one meal a week, they poisoned me in that meal, and I died. And that's how I died in that life, because I wouldn't play by the rules, and I was making a big fuss about how they were treating us. There was a lot of women. There were thousands of oracles, for the record, because we're talking 5,000 years of history. Thousands and thousands of years people came for those readings. And that's thousands and thousands and thousands of women that were basically enslaved and beaten and drugged and all this horrible shit. And yet we talk about it like it's cool. So, and that's just the Greek oracles, for the record. This is also about the Egyptian oracles, where they were very much the same. The Egyptian oracles were almost identical to that. They were drugged up and all kinds of horrible shit, and they were enslaved too. So this is a lot of trauma and history that we're starting to kind of explore, because we're going into our past life resonances. We're trying to understand who we are and why we have the feelings that we do about certain things, and exploring, going to your Akashic records like that can really change your whole understanding of who you are and why you are the way you are. So, time to heal oracle wounds. Exactly, Jessica. Carolyn and I are working on a witch wound class, but I feel like the witch wound class is going to be very similar healing in that regard. So if you guys have any interest in learning about that, we will be doing a witch wound class probably next month or so. And we'll be teaching people how to heal the witch wound. It's not just about witch wounds, though, because this can also be for people that have a persecution wound. Where is it? I keep this close to me now. I've been doing a lot of meditation on the Cathar cross. In fact, I'm even wearing, I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm wearing a Cathar cross right now here too. Because I was a Cathar. And somebody yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, one of you guys booked a clearing, and I went into the resonances and they had a triggered witch wound. And I was like, okay. And then I said, is there another one? And they said, yeah, triggered persecution wound. And as soon as they said triggered persecution wound, I saw it in my head. I saw the Cathar cross in my head. And I said to them, I said, was she a Cathar too? Yes, she was. Did she get burned as a Cathar as well? Yes, she did. So she was burned twice, and both of her resonances were being burned. And I was like, holy crap. Like, this is me. This is exactly what I went through. I was killed as a witch. I was burned. And then in another life, I was killed as a Cathar. And I was burned as a Cathar as well. I was other things as a Cathar too. The Cathar stuff was pretty heavy. So you guys have a lot of healing that is being called to, from the surface from all of this. You guys are getting ready to release all of this. And this class, that is the plan. That is the intention for that, is to be able to heal it and release it. Lexi says, as a psychic Greek woman, I feel some type of way about all that now too. I'm sure you do, Lexi. There's so much of these layers that are being called forward for healing right now, because this is very important to heal right now. We're letting all of that go, and that allows us to be able to embrace these healed versions. You become a healed healer in that regard, because if you're not a healed healer, you're going to have triggers that are going to be popping up in ways that you're not expecting. And a persecution wound is pretty big. Like, let's say somebody comes at you because they disagree with you about something. Right? And then they get insulting about it. They're like, you're stupid. Your opinion is stupid. Right? That can create all kinds of emotions, all kinds. You can have an absolute disgust that can come forward. You can have anger. You can have feelings of, oh my God, they're right. I am stupid. You have imposter syndrome stuff that comes up. You have self-doubt. Most of the time when we find somebody with a triggered witch wound, there's self-degradation, like they're literally beating themselves up and making themselves feel less than. They're gaslighting themselves like crazy. A lot of them are actually even like failing to set boundaries with a lot of people. You lack boundaries when you're dealing with a witch wound, because you're scared to not please people. If I don't make you happy, what are you going to do to me? A lot of people think that way, where they're like, oh, I can't upset them because I don't want them to get upset and then come after me. I don't want them to come at me for disagreeing with me or for just having a different opinion. So a lot of us shut ourselves down. A lot of us, okay, you disagree, that's fine. And somebody will come up to you and be like, what's your opinion on this? And you're like, I can't tell them my true opinion on this. They're going to think I'm nuts. So every time I speak up about something, even though I did it this morning, talking about the moon and how I know the moon isn't actually a moon. That fucker is hollow. I know for a fact it is, because there's so many things that prove that to us, but I still feel crazy saying it. I know things for a fact, and I still feel crazy saying them. Why? Persecution wound. It'll do that. You'll be 100,000% convinced about something. And yet when you go to vocalize it, you still feel uncomfortable. You still feel ashamed. You still feel weird talking about it because you gaslight yourself so much. So if you have that feeling of, oh, I can't speak my truth, you probably have a persecution wound. It may not be a full-blown witch wound, but for some, there's some things were worse. Like people who were persecuted during the Inquisition, people who were persecuted as Cathars, they burned tons of us as Cathars. Corey says moon magic will still work even though it's fake. No, we don't do anything with the moon. In fact, when it's a full moon, part of the reason I have this opinion though is because I spent a lot of time in Kruger, and on full moons, we call it poacher's moon. A full moon in South Africa, we look forward to the new moon. You know why? Because on the new moon, animals are safest. The poachers can't get out there because they would have to use lights. They would have to use things that would alert us to their attention. So the animals are safest on a new moon. On a full moon, the poachers are out in full force. Same thing goes for everything else. All the predators on a new moon are kind of quiet and they don't really do anything. The matrix is strongest. That 3D artificial matrix I was telling you about is strongest during the full moon. So on a new moon, that energy is the opposite. So that is when that's, for example, like when I take mushrooms. I'm still a psychonaut for the record. I absolutely love mushrooms and I have no qualms about admitting it. I only take mushrooms on the new moon. I will not trip on a full moon. Hell no. No. Because there's just too many beasties out. And just like on a full moon in the bush where there's poachers everywhere, same thing. It's just like that on a full moon. Why do you think all the crazies are out? They're like, oh my God, it's full moon. I used to work in a hospital and we would have sometimes double the staff on during a full moon. And they don't even believe in that shit. They don't even they just know shit's going to get crazier on a full moon. So hospitals have to account for that. They literally bring in more staff when they know a full moon is coming. Why do you think that is? Because they know full moon makes people crazy. Somebody said honey badgers in South Africa go on a full hunting sprees on new full moons. Yeah, I'm not surprised. The predators are out. Even parasites are more active on a full moon. Even your gut flora, all of those gut parasites, people struggle with sleep. They struggle with overeating and all this stuff on a full moon. That's why even your parasites in your gut are more active on a full moon. So no, I don't charge my crystals in the moon. I don't make moon water. I flip off the moon. I'm like, you are the source of my problems. If it was up to me, I'd knock it out of the sky. Don't even get me started. Okay, so no, I don't do any full moon stuff. Is it good to do a cleanse on a full moon? Maybe. Jenna says we just had a full moon. I know. I have to take these things into account. Do you know how many you guys double bookings on a full moon as well, for the record? Double the bookings on a full moon. In fact, I said to the guides, what is happening? I said something last night. I got booking after booking, and they said it's still full moon energy. It'll settle down in a couple days. I was like, holy shit. Thank you for reminding me, by the way. Sharice is like, are we doing a Astara today? Oh, yeah. I had 170 people still watching. That's why I didn't switch over. So yes, we can switch over to Astara in a moment. We can have a chit chat on Astara. For those of you who are unsure what Astara is, you mind dropping the link, Sharice? So Astara community is our safe space, so to speak. Astara is our academy where we teach all kinds of interesting things. So our academy teaches all about psychic protection, spiritual hygiene, astral projection, spirit release, Reiki, you name it. We have all kinds of different things in our community. And so going up there every Monday, I go live on there to go on and have a chat over Zoom. You guys are welcome to come on over, over video. You can come over audio, or you can just be a fly on the wall and listen to the conversation. But there's a lot of things we can't even discuss here on Facebook for censorship reasons and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys are interested, you're able to join me on Zoom. It's basically like a free mentorship. Every Monday we hang out for a while and we have conversations. You can come on and have a chit chat vocally, or you can ask questions, or, there's no holds barred. You can literally talk about anything you want. I have to have somewhat of a filter on Facebook. I do not have my filter at all on Astara. So literally anything you guys want to talk about, I will talk about on there. So if you're interested, hop on with us. Then you can have a conversation and chit chat and get to know some of the people in the community that way. So it's just an opportunity for us to get to know each other better and to just basically hang out with us. So we do have it's like a subscription to go on there because it helps us keep our community flowing. In fact, a lot of this work that we do is pro bono work. So this helps us to keep an eye on all of that. Just having the website, for the record, is $5,000 a year. So that is what you guys are helping me to cover. I wouldn't be able to have this website if there wasn't a subscription. So that's what they charge. They charge over $5,000 a year. So that helps me to cover the subscription so we can have the website. So that's why we do have to charge, unfortunately. So that's the website. It's astaracommunity.com. I have tons of information up there. There's tons of recordings. Lost Soul Rescues get posted up there. This is also what we use for our forum. And I wanted to say it's really, really wonderful to see all of the new students popping in there. So make sure that if you're able to, pop on and see, because you've got your recordings now. Everybody should have your recordings. For the record, if you're somebody who really, really wants to join and yet you are unemployed or something, or a single mom and you don't have the money, we do occasionally offer scholarships, and we will give people in there for free as well. So just keep in mind, like, if this is a barrier, then we're not going to tell you, no, you can't come in and join us. We do allow that for people. But it does help us to support our community and to do the work we do, because everything we do costs money. Like I said, just running my website for a year costs over $5,000. So you guys are helping me to keep my website alive by those who do pay. But even if you can't afford it, we're not going to tell you you're not welcome just because you can't. So this is the website. If you guys are interested, there's tons of information up there. There's free information, free classes, free healing stuff. There's a lot up there. So for those of you who would like to join, we are very excited to have you. So I'm going to switch over to that now so I can have some time to chit chat with you guys privately before I go and chase beasties with Carolyn in a little bit. So I love you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And I'm going to see some of the students today. We're going to do some student practice sessions today. I'm so excited about it. So we have our wonderful friend, Michael James Garber, coming tomorrow. Thank you, Jennifer. Michael is a hypnotist. He is a wonderful friend, and he gets all kinds of interesting stories. He was trained under Dolores, and he's got his own modality now that he does. So for those of you who are interested in hypnosis, you don't want to miss out on our chat with Michael tomorrow. He's a lot of fun. Mwah! I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.